Hi guys, Jeff Rowley here, and we're going to go over one of my patterns called the mini frog bomb, and this kind of represents a small frog. I used to fishing inside my bass ponds and fishing with bigger stuff like this, and I'd have trouble with some of the smaller stuff that I wanted to catch, like the bluegills and maybe some of the crappie. They couldn't hit the hook, the bigger hook. So I decided to make a smaller pattern called the mini frog bomb that I could catch the bluegills and the bass on. And this is the pattern right here. And it's basically a small version of a spook, if you will. And we've put down a hard mono foundation here, and I have killed it with a 3.5 millimeter tungsten bead. Now I'm going to attach my 200 denier GSP, and this is Simplify Nano Silk. Very important that when you're doing deer hair that you're going to use GSP, most importantly. And start my thread back here. I have my thread ender here into my GSP. And I'm going to come in here and do a couple of half hitches. And this is going to keep my thread in line, in place here. And this is a 35 millimeter shank that I'm working off right here. Now we're going to get into something that's kind of messy. Deer hair is definitely a mess, but what I'm going to do is I want to have a different colored base on the fly, or the belly on the fly. And so what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to do a half spin down to the bottom. One of the first things I like to do when I get my deer hair is I like to get all this underfur out, because underfur just kind of soaks up water. So you try your best to get out as much of the underfur as you can. And I'd say, you know, a lot of times they're saying use a pencil width of hair. I'm probably using just a little bit more, kind of just adjust it a little bit here. Once I think that I'm satisfied with getting out, and you can see how messy this is, I'm satisfied with getting out most of that underfur. This is how we do our half spin right here. Before I use with deer hair, that's why it's nice to use GSP. GSP is a lot of different strands, and this is 200 denier. 200 denier means that there's 200 strands of tiny thread together to make this one strand here. And what I can do is I can counter spin my bobbin to open the thread up, and that's basically means that I want to lay the thread flat. And that's important, because the flatter I can lay down the thread, the more pressure I can put on my deer hair without cutting through the deer hair. So it's important to have thread control here. And then we're going to do 2 loose but firm wraps, and I can let go of the deer hair. I know that I've used the right amount of pressure. The third wrap is going to start spinning the deer hair around. I see the shank, and then I tighten down. Okay, and now I've spun this deer hair down into the base of the fly. Now we're going to go through what we call the primary color of the fly and what we stack on the top here. And I'm going to use green here. We're kind of going with froggy colors, but I'm going to put some bright colors on it too, so that we can see this on the water real good. And then another fairly nice, probably a little bit more than a pencil width of hair. And it's always important to do the best you can to brush out this underfur. Deer hair is slick too, so learning how to pinch and handle deer hair too. This all comes from dedication and repetition, and that's what it takes to tackle deer hair, which is sometimes a little bit more challenging than maybe other genres of fly tying. So this time right here, I'm going to just leave it on the top, squeeze on the sides, and make sure I'm always opening up my thread, pop down, okay? And then I'm going to we like to use a hair packer. I'm using this Stonefo hair packer, and I like to pack it back just a little bit. And now I need to get my thread in front of this stack right here. And so I'm just going to kind of go at an angle from the bottom and get it in the front. And now we use a nice stack and pressure with my packer. And this has a beveled edge on it, so that I can take and I can do a couple winds, and I'm sliding it up against this bevel, which it makes it nice and easy. And then I can cinch down, all right, while I'm putting some pressure on the pack there, and I'll let go and everything's set in place right there. Now then, on my mini frog bomb, I like to separate little sections and make stripes on them. And I do it kind of fancy here, and I like to do 2 colors at once, and this is a cool method. And I take a kind of a small stack of hair of red. We can use any color we want. I'm going to use red and yellow on this one. A little small stack of yellow. Okay, and this is just enough to make a stripe, so it's way less than the last stack of hair that I use in there. So it's 1/4 of a pencil width with them both stacked together. And then what I like to do is use two colors. I could just use one color, right? But I like to use two colors, and it looks really cool. My little artistic flair, if you will. And what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to kind of do a pinch wrap, all right, while I'm holding the deer hair up high. I'm going to come down and around the shank, and one more time, I'm going to pull down and pulley it down onto the shank, keeping it on the top, flare it, and pinch and pull back so I keep the deer hair on the top. And at this point, I'm going to do again, I'm going to compress it back, and then I'm going to wrap around my packer again, which I'm put some pressure back here, and I'm wrapping around this smooth bezel that's on this is going to help me slide my thread down there without having any problems. And real tight, and then now I'm ready to repeat this process over and over again until we get up to the eye of the hook. And I'll try to move a little bit faster here, and I may repeat what I've done a little bit, because repetition is the key to tying good deer hair. Kind of muscle memory too is like I want to kind of use the same amount of hair that I've used before every time. So you have to tie flies over and over again to kind of, you know, build up that type of memory, if you will. Now we're going to start again, 2 wraps for a half spin, 2 wraps. It's on the top. The third wrap, spin to the bottom and flare. And we use our thumb to kind of hold it in place. Now I have a good platform to build up my top color, which is green again. Brushing out the underfur. Stacked on top. We're pretty much putting our thread in about the middle of the stack of the deer hair. Pinch down, pop up. I can pack back a little bit. Now I want to move my thread from the middle of the hair stack to in front. Pack back. Get a couple of wraps sliding around this packer. And cinch down while I'm still have some pressure on it. Because if you didn't have this packer and the pressure, as soon as I let go, it's going to want it like an accordion. It'll stretch back out this way. We're going to do our colors again, a little bit of red. This makes our stripes on the top, a little bit of yellow. Hold them together, and I'm keeping these separate. I'm not trying to blend the hair together. All right, but you'd still get a stripe. I think this looks kind of cool because it kind of puts 2 colors of a stripe together. It makes kind of an organic looking stripe, if you will. Kind of pulley together with a pinch wrap, holding it up a little bit. 2 wraps and pulley it down, cinch it down. Always trying to find my tools because I cover them up with stuff. I'm going to pack it back. Get a couple of wraps while I'm packing back and tighten down. Bites into that hard mono foundation that I have here too. Repeat the process. We're going to spin this white down to the belly again. 1, 2, fairly loose, but firm enough to hold on the top. Continue the spin down to the bottom. Use your thumb to stop it when you see the shank open up again. Then we're going to go with our primary color on the top. Always getting that underfur. Another way too is like the more underfur we get out, the better. So sometimes you brush a little bit. You can kind of roll your deer hair just a little bit like this right here. Brush again, and you'll get a little bit more of that underfur out. It's pretty much impossible to get it all out, but we try to do just the best we can. Okay, on the top here, 2 loose wraps. Pinch it on the sides, pop it up. And then we're going to pack it back. I like to get my deer hair out from the bottom, up in front of the stack. Couple of wraps while I have pressure on it again. Cinch down tight. Move up. Put in our little stripe. Deer hair quality is good. I'm using belly hair, and we're looking for coarse belly hair. The coarser the better. And we're also looking for a little bit of length. I get most of my quality deer hair from St. Marie's Flies, out of St. Marie's, Idaho. And I've found that to be pretty much the best you can find out there. And you know, the better quality deer hair you can get, the nicer flies you can make. Coarseness allows us to flare this hair. If the deer hair is a little bit too flat, or it lays flat on the hide, or body hair, some body hair works, but for the most part we're using belly hair, then it's going to affect the end result is the you know, the quality of your. Hey, Ken Baldwin. So a couple wraps there to get it in front, and then some wraps around here while I have some pressure back, push back, cinch down, holds everything in place. And we're a little bit over half done here on the body and on the stack. Two wraps on the top, loose, spin to the bottom. This is about the third time you've heard this, but repetition's good, all right? And I get deer hair everywhere, including in my mouth and nose. I'm kind of used to it now. Back to the primary color on the top. Kind of adjust the size of the stack. I was like, I got a little bit too much there. That looks good. When you're first starting out, you can get you a material stager. That kind of helps so that you can kind of stage all your hair out beforehand, and then you can kind of visually see, you know, keep everything the same size. When you first start out, it may be hard to remember exactly how much hair you use. It's never exact, but close. Okay, top part, always opening up the thread to make sure your thread lays flat. Pop it down. Move the hair back a little bit. And let's move the thread out from the middle of the stack in front again. And then a couple of wraps while I have some pressure on it right here. Pull back with some pressure and tighten it down. And that hair usually stays right in place. We're going with our stripe. It's kind of hard to see where I'm going. I know what it's going to pretty much look like when I'm done here, but it's kind of hard for you to see when the fly is basically going to end up looking like this when I'm done. And then it's like chiseling out a statue out of marble and stuff, you know. It's gonna take shape.
She's my best buddy. She travels.
But right now it just looks like a colored porcupine.
The biggest show I ever took her to was in Virginia 3 weeks ago.
Okay, let's put the stripe in.
She was rolling with some 6-inch heels, and I was like, "Mayor, what was your favorite part of the show?" I was like, after the show, she's like, "Dad, taking off those darn heels." I told you not to wear them. But she's insane. She's changing very rapidly now. She became a lady, proper lady, when she was 10. So in front, man, I don't drink at home, but we're drinking wine and stuff after the party in the lobby.
We're getting pretty close to the nose.
Drinking grape.
I press this deer hair, and I want to keep the density all the way up to the front of this fly, so I'm going to keep on packing on hair. When I run out of real estate, which is basically the room that I have on my shank, it starts getting more and more difficult to put the deer hair on. So I have a few little techniques whenever I start running out of real estate, and that's basically like the angle of my thread, because we don't want it to slip over the eye of the hook. So my angle will be back towards the back of the fly with the thread now. Again, we're going to do a half spin to the bottom for the belly, 2 loose wraps, spin it until we see the shank, use our thumb, and then cinch down. Okay, go back to the primary color on the top. We're getting pretty close to the nose.
Getting people fishing and how I approach.
But I do believe I'm going to have to pack on just a little bit more hair still. And I still have room to put on one more stripe, and then I'll pack on what I call the nose of the fly.
Oyster. Burrata sauce, guys. So if I find a burrata Palminas that's really cool, I can take tissue samples of it, put it in agar-agar, and so it goes in my sealed bread.
Okay, now we got to get in one more stack on the nose, and we're almost done with the stacking portion of this fly. Hard to do my spin at this point, so what I usually do, and this is where it's nice to have a rotary vise, is that I'm just going to spin this upside down and do that same method that I've done on the top with the spots, is kind of pulley it down into position right here. And my angle again is always going back here, because it'd be real easy for me to slip over the eye of the hook, and that could cause some problems right now. We got the bottom on, and now we'll go on with one more little stack of green, and then I'll show you how I get my knot in to stop at my whip finish, which can be pretty tricky. Now I've got a lot of hair here on the eye, and so sometimes the hard thing is finding the eye of the fly, and so that's where the packer is real important.
But telling a lady that you've met and just fished with her that, you know what, I'll go beat him up. It never comes to that, but then
So I'm putting some muscle in here, guys.
and then usually I can separate it to.
Okay, now I'm going to try my best. This is going to be a real difficult part right here. We cord our. This is the one time where we don't want our thread flat when we put in our whip finish. We want it corded up. And I'm going to make my triangle with my whip finisher, and then I'm going to use my fingers to pull the hair back the best I can and try to just get a single turn whip on it to start with. And it's a good feeling when I get that first one in, because I know that I'm basically going to be able to finish this fly. And then I always like to get one more whip finish in it, just to make sure, guys. And that's all right. I'm going to turn my steamer on. This is the point where I've basically got the stacking done, and sometimes that can be difficult. And I'm going to let my steamer heat up. It just takes a couple minutes. This is a good time to go through with your bodkin, because you're going to trap hairs. This is a great time to go through and use your bodkin and kind of go through the body a little bit and slide it through. And you'll get out most of these trapped hairs, which will definitely show up if you don't. Now, I've compressed this deer hair a lot, and I've smashed the deer hair flat, and so the best, and deer hair is hollow, but on the inside of deer hair we have a membrane that's inside the hollow hair, and when we compress, we flatten the deer hair. One thing that'll fix that is we use steam, and what that does is it puffs the membrane back out. And so if you had a bent hair, all right, and then you put some steam on it, it's going to straighten right back out. And so that's one of the keys for us to get this density on our deer hair flies, is for us, and it just like it, I would say it probably increases the density by approximately 20% if you didn't do this. And so here we go, and we're going to get a close-up of this, and just watch the way this deer hair reacts now, because I've crushed it down so much. And it just rejuvenates all that hair, and now it's sticking out straight. And I know you guys can see that. and it fixed every bit of the crooked hairs that I had, and basically also the smashed hair where it's flat. Now everything's back to round again. And so now basically we're gonna get into the trim. You're gonna really enjoy that. Okay, now we get into the trim on this fly. We're gonna try to make it look round, like a little tiny frog. And honestly, there's just not much I can say about this other than just don't go too deep at first. We want to trim kind of shallow. And that way, because you can go too deep and you can't fix it on your body. If you go shallow, you can always kind of whittle it down. And I think I said earlier, it's kind of like carving a statue out of marble. All right. And it is a similar process right here. It's not, when you're using your razor blade, it's nice to rotate your blade just a little bit when you're going through the deer hair, because deer hair, as you know, hair dulls a razor blade, and we want to kind of go as far. As soon as this razor blade kind of starts grabbing the hair, I know it's time for me to use a new razor blade or flip over to the other side, because we'll end up not having quite as smooth a finish. And you can definitely spend a lot of time here on your trim. And I do use scissors, not just razor blades, but I'll use a scissor here in just a little bit and I'll show you. So Renomed will be happy that I'm not just using razor blades, I'm using their scissors too. And I do have people asking me that. Do you use your scissors at all? I sure do. And I'm going to say this much too. When you decide to use razor blades, you have to kind of take the risk is that I could cut myself with a razor blade. You don't have to use a razor blade. You could use scissors for this whole process too. I like the clean finish of a razor, all right? And golly, use a magnet pad to put your razor blades, and take some extra precaution to be safe when you're using razor blades for sure. Because I'll say, using scissors are a little bit safer. Now I'm gonna pull this out of the vise, and I'm gonna use my scissors to kind of do a little bit of trimming here, and I'll try to hold this right in about the same space that I had this. Are you able to focus on this right here? Okay. Okay. So I like to kind of hand trim at this point. And it's just a little bit easier for me to manage the fly rather than going to my vise and kind of get this round shape that I want. Well, it's more of a teardrop shape from the back of the fly up to the front. I think it looks like a frog. You can see that green bead that I have on the back there. That's a 3.5 millimeter tungsten bead, and that allows this fly to keel in the water, all right? And stay basically belly down, top up, and it also allows it to, if you will, when you're fishing with it, to kind of, it moves a little bit more water. It allows it to, basically what we do is called walking the dog, or kind of do a skate on the top of the water too, and we want it to do the zigzag motion through the water, and when you do small little jerks and it kind of goes back and forth. Or you can do a real quick jerk and make it plop. It has a little bit more agitation and a little bit more control over your zigzag if you have a little bit of weight on the fly. And so anybody that has fished a Zara spook knows what I'm talking about right there. Sorry, getting out of the zone. Now you guys are kind of seeing this thing take place, and you can kind of see this. You can kind of see the stripes that I was working on pretty hard. Using a razor blade that's broken in half, it's a little bit easier for me to bend in my fingers. If you're intermediate, a beginner, I suggest that you use a razor blade holder. And they look pretty much like these right here. And that'll help you with safety a little bit. You won't cut yourself quite as often. Okay, I'll try to keep it right here, and I think I'm almost done doing a rough cut, and I think that then you can just I can either finish this fly up probably when I get home in a couple days, and then send you some finished pictures of this fly.
Honestly, I'm content with what we got with this camera. The GoPro is just like a security cutaway.
Gotcha.
This part, this is like, you want to be nice and tight on it anyways.
I'm trying to, I have to pull it up and look at it for the symmetry. So, but I'm trying to keep it right up here on the tip there as much as I can. I hope that it's working.
It's all good. We can work through it. And we can also do cuts. I mean, I don't really want to roll it the whole time. I mean, they're going to, lose attention span. So if we kind of do the initial trim and then the secondary trim and then kind of cut right to the business end where you do your last couple of cleanup trims. And then,
Yep.
Once we're there, that's the final note.
So this right here is basically what I would say is my good rough trim. Okay, and I'd like to do one more steam here.
That would never happen. Just to see what kind of light they might listen. Just something so out there that the fish are going to go. Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then now I'll try to go through and do a nice, kind of a smooth finish on it.
Gets their attention. And they're like, especially if you get kind of really out there, like, I've never seen that. I hear different podcast guys saying, some of them fish are pretty dumb. When you try to eat purple rubber worm 3 or 4 times, there comes a time when even a dumb fish is going to go, that's a purple rubber worm. I'm going to eat that again.
Steam helps fill up the negative space, and so I start getting that real, like you've heard the term of cork-like deer hair, and that's definitely helps. And steaming is an old school technique. I didn't make it up. We learned it from the old timers. You just go until you're satisfied, and I'm pretty close to satisfied here. Let's do a few more cuts here. Okay, let's call that done. You think it's cool? You'll be able to do something with that. Jeff Rowley here, and this is my mini frog bomb. If you guys want to learn more about deer hair and deer hair techniques and how I do this stuff, you can contact me on my social media. My Facebook is Jeff Rowley, Rowley, and my Instagram and YouTube are Rowley Benchwork.